can hear and see. I've got some tech support working with me on the other end. That sounding better? This is going to be an interesting evening, talking to myself in a room and not knowing who's watching or how many people are watching or if there's questions. I like to read faces, so bear with me. This is going to be a little bit of an adventure, I think, certainly on my end. We do have the ability for you to put questions in the chat. I think if you look at the top of the YouTube channel, there's a place to put your chat questions, and I will do my best to watch for those and answer those along the way. And we'll certainly take time at the end to answer any questions that we haven't gotten to. I'm getting a thumbs up from my tech support, so I'm assuming that everything is going well and you can hear me. Again, thank you for inviting me tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. I can't really start without at least acknowledging Judy Harris, who is a good family friend of mine, of ours, of my family growing up, who is now one of your league members in Ripon and has had a great influence in my life and continues to be an influence in terms of the kind of retirement that I would hope to do, staying involved and staying engaged in the kinds of causes that make a difference and that we feel strongly about. So thanks to Judy for that and for inviting me. I'm going to do a little flipping back and forth between a PowerPoint presentation with some images and facts and words, and then I'm going to come back on the screen and we'll watch comments as they come in, like I said. So we'll just do our best here and see how it goes. So it is a surprise to probably very few people on the stream tonight that the political polarization in our life and the negativity associated with that is increasing. We've been seeing it for quite a while. Most of us feel it in the environments that we find ourselves in how when we're talking to friends and family, things just feel a little bit more tense. Sometimes we can put our finger on what's causing it and sometimes we can't. But stats like this that show that in the 1960 presidential campaign, only 10% of political advertisements were negative, and that by 2012, that was only 14% were actually positive, shows that there are actually concrete tracking pieces of information that we can look at that shows that there's a lot more negativity in what we are seeing in terms of the media, in terms of the messages that people are putting out there. And that definitely has an impact on everybody. In 1960, 4% of Democrats and Republicans said they would be unhappy if their child married someone in the opposite political party. I just actually saw a stat that talked about how that statistic of people being unhappy with interracial marriage was also very high. That is now changed considerably, whereas almost 90% of people don't have strong feelings about interracial marriages. But now more and more in 2019, we are seeing that 45% of Democrats and 35% of Republicans were upset at the thought of their children marrying somebody from the opposite political party. So again, that just shows that we are seeing more about differences than we are about commonalities, and we are drawing lines around the places that we are in and find ourselves in, and find it less and less easy to find the ways that we are connected. This is a fun little stat. This just came out actually a couple of months ago. Actual research that showed that since 2016, people who traveled for Thanksgiving to an area with the opposite political leanings to their own spent less time, actually up to 1 less hour at their Thanksgiving than people who did not travel across those party lines. So, again, we're seeing these things, we feel these things. This is not a surprise to anybody. But when we start seeing statistics that can bear out this information, it's been another cause sort of for alarm and for recognition that we are in a challenging environment. We also know that this political environment, as discouraging it is for us as adults, is incredibly discouraging for young people as well. In 2011, 24% of millennials who were interviewed considered democracy to be a bad or very bad way of running the country. 60% of young people, particularly in rural young people, and 30% in suburban and urban, live in what we call civic deserts, where there's very, very little opportunity to meet, discuss, share ideas, or share ideas with people who might feel differently than them, but done in a respectful way. So we do a lot of expectations of young people growing up to be the kind of citizens we want them to be, but we don't put a lot of time necessarily or thought into how that's going to happen. I'm a parent. I've got 2 teenagers. I'm sure a lot of you have kids as well. And we spend a lot of our time from the time they are very little teaching them how to do things. We teach them how to brush their teeth. We teach them how to eat healthy and to get a good night's rest. We teach them how to study. We teach them how to be polite when you're introducing yourself to somebody in a public setting. So we do a lot of that, but we don't always articulate or verbalize, again, what it is that we hope that when they turn 18, how they're going to become productive and contributing members of community. We do a lot of assuming that that's going to happen. And again, if we just rely on what's happening in the media or what people are seeing, I can honestly tell you that that is a pretty frightening set of odds. They're not going to just assimilate by looking at the television how we would like people to act. I took this quote from George Bush's inaugural address. And again, the Y is a very nonpartisan, and we try to be very, very nonpartisan. And it is the case that we really do share a lot more in common than we have differences. And here's a good quote from George Bush, that whether you're on the left or the right, we are bound by ideals that teach us what it means to be citizens. Every child must be taught these ideals. Every citizen must uphold them. And I ask you to be citizens. Citizens, not spectators. Citizens, not subjects. Responsible citizens building communities of service and a nation of character. And that is what I am privileged to do every day. I think a lot of you in the League and in other youth-serving organizations feel that sense that that is why we get up and go to work every day, and that the outcomes we hope are apparent, again, in building a community of service and a nation of character. One of the things that we have in the Center for Youth Voice and in Youth in Government is that democracy must be learned by each generation. Young people do not automatically become engaged or informed, like I said, when they turn 18. We expect that people are going to start to vote, and we wonder why young people don't vote, and then we have to admit that we've never really taught them how to vote. Our ability, we know this from research, to participate, and our desire to participate in society, or really any activity, depends on our experiences or lack thereof, as well as implicit or explicit messages that shape whether we believe that our participation is valid and valued, and that change is possible. So I really believe, and I think you probably share this with me, that we have a responsibility and a role to ensure that young people are prepared to contribute to the civic and political lives of their communities. I mentioned that I'm fortunate every day to be able to get up and run a slew of programs that focus exactly on doing that, developing cause-driven leaders through programs and experiences that build civic skills, character, and confidence. That's the mission that we strive to uphold. We offer year-round opportunities to engage in both low-intensity and high-intensity programs. We're going to talk about those a little bit, and especially some of the ones that we can have a connection with together. We are radically nonpartisan and welcome to students of all backgrounds, opinions, and parts of our state, and I'll tease a little bit in your state as well, coming to you soon. And we lean into school and community partnerships to strengthen and expand our programming. We know that the Ys can't do everything. Schools can't do everything. Lord knows teachers can't do everything. We expect a lot already of those groups. And so we look to partner whatever we can to supplement with the good stuff that's going on and to fill in some gaps when we see them. So we like to do this in 3 different ways. We like to talk about clearing a path for young people to developing and using their voice, to take actions on issues that matter to them. We host one program called Youth Day at the Capitol, where we invite hundreds of young people to come down, and we do not tell them what to advocate for. Many of you, if you've been at the Capitol, and maybe even with the League, it's pretty common to have youth groups come into the Capitol, and they're led by adult groups that say, okay, here's what we're advocating for today. And that's also a really good experience to have kids learn how to advocate. But what we want to do is really focus on the process of advocacy. So we have student-led trainings in the morning that teach kids how to be a successful and effective advocate. And then we set up one-on-one meetings with their own local legislators. And we ask them to go in and stick out their hand and introduce themselves and say, I live in your district, and here's an issue that I care about. And sit down and have that conversation, because once they know that that's possible, they know that they can do that again and again. It's amazing to me how many adults don't realize that it's possible to walk into the Capitol, make an appointment with their legislator to speak about the things that matter to them. So that's our Youth Day at the Capitol. We also do students voting, which is a partnership we have with the Minnesota Secretary of State's office. We run a statewide mock election. In 2020, we had over 250,000 students signed up. We did not get to pull that off with the COVID decline, and so we ended up having about 100,000 students actually participating in our voting. But our goal is to have every school, every young person have the opportunity to do a mock election in their school. We encourage schools to set up polling places, and we sometimes partner with leagues of women voters. We sometimes partner with PTAs or older students as election judges. And the students get to come into the cafeteria or the media center or the front lobby and check off their name and grab a ballot and go behind a privacy screen and vote for a slate of candidates that mirrors their local slate of candidates in their community, and then put their ballot into a voting machine to have it counted and displayed at the end of the day when the rest of the state's tallies are done. So again, we really believe that practicing civics is the best way to learn civics. We offer tools and experiences that allow students to explore and discuss important controversial topics with the goal of increasing tolerance and empathy. We have a program that is the Conference on National Affairs, where kids from all over the country, all 50 states, come to Washington, D.C. in the summertime and have deep and rich and sometimes contentious conversations, but do so in a way that is respectful and interested in learning as opposed to just getting their point across. We also host a program called Respectful Conversations in Schools, where we go in and do trainings with teachers and students and teach them a very simple protocol that has 3 different steps that allows for every person to respond to questions and every person to get a chance to speak up, regardless of if that's something that they are, if they're one of the students who always raises their hand or if they never raise their hand. The protocol itself supports every student being heard. And it also supports asking questions of genuine interest, because we know that we all know, if we're parents or if we're anybody, we've all done that where we've asked a question where we kind of already know the answer a little bit. A question of genuine interest is one where we're really looking to hear and find out something different or find out something about somebody. So we teach kids that skill. What does a question of genuine interest sound like? What is the goal of a question of genuine interest versus a question that we already know the answer to? And how do we make sure that we can continue to engage people in a way that is conveying to them that we have an interest in what they're saying and their story and their lived experience? Because that's the way that we learn about our own, broaden our own perspectives. Finally, we have 2 other programs that I want to highlight tonight. One is the Student Election Judge Network. We work with cities and counties across the state of Minnesota to place youth election judges between the ages of 16 and 18 in polling places. In Minnesota, they are paid. They are paid the same wages as adults. And our job is really to make the connections between the students and the high schools and the election offices. When we got into this business about 4 years ago, we heard from the schools that they didn't know where to look or where to find information, and we heard from the election offices that no one was really interested, that they had tried. So we work really hard to make those connections, to get the kids involved and to get them feeling and experiencing and living what it's like to be in a polling place on election day. The last program that I want to just mention is Youth in Government. I'm going to go into that a little bit more in depth here just for a few minutes. And the reason behind that is that it is our marquee program. We have about 1,600 kids in Youth in Government every year that come to the Capitol and that learn all about government and how to be in government. But the exciting news for tonight is that as of a couple weeks ago, the Center for Youth Voice has taken over taken over. That's terrible sounding. We have partnered with the Wisconsin Alliance of Ys to help run youth in government in Wisconsin as well. So we are busily trying to work with the different Ys who've been working on youth in government in the past to help stabilize that program a little bit and grow it, which is what I'm going to make an ask of you all in by the end of the conversation here, how you can help us do that. So Youth in Government is an immersive multi-day conference at the State Capitol Complex in Minnesota. That means St. Paul. In Wisconsin, that means Madison. Started in 1946. So this year we mark our 75th anniversary, and we're going to be celebrating with a big party next June of 2022. Students can choose to serve as legislators, judges, attorneys, lobbyists, cabinet members, and media representatives. Literally what happens is that these kids, the grown-up adult legislators, move out of the Capitol on a Wednesday evening, and the kids, all 1,600 of them, move into the Capitol on Thursday and spend Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning running a mock government in all of the roles, using all of the roles, sitting in the desks, walking the halls, using the same microphones to feel what it's like to run a government. The delegations, which are most often school-based, work together in the fall to prepare materials for their program areas. They listen to speakers and practice all of their presentation skills to get ready to come down to the Capitol and the conference, which is sort of the end and the culmination of all that preparation. This is a picture of the young people sitting in the chamber, the Senate chamber in Minnesota. And I will tell you that I was not familiar with this program before coming on board to the Y, and soon after the 2016 election, I was actually feeling pretty low about the future of our democracy. And part of that was the election itself, and part of that was just the process and how demoralized so many people felt, and how beat up and how tired, just that it was so negative, especially toward the end. And I was invited to come see and to stand and watch the youth and government kids. And I walked in and saw these kids taking the issues seriously, debating and discussing, disagreeing, coming to compromise, standing up, making proposals for laws that they felt strongly about. And I just thought, it's going to be okay. It's really going to be okay. And the kids today are really highly, highly motivated and highly, highly engaged in a way that I don't think even when I was young. I loved current events, and I would have loved a program like Youth in Government. I didn't participate in a program like that, but seeing these kids and recognizing that we're seeing examples of kids all over getting involved in a very deep, meaningful level to make change and to make the change that they want to see was really a turning point for me, and a moment of realizing that this really could be the work that I could support the rest of my life. I mentioned we have 1,600 kids. Here is the judicial court sitting up to start their first hearing. So why do kids join? I mean, I just told you why I thought it was really cool that they joined, but for kids that I've talked to and the kids that we see year in and year out, it gives them a chance to get engaged with the important issues that face our state, nation, and our world. They learn how government works in order to make change happen. We know better than others that it's all good and fun to stand up and yell or demand change, but until you know how the mechanisms work, who you need to talk to, how laws get made, how laws get changed, how laws get passed, how laws get implemented, all the different parties that come together. That's the first step in learning how to really make change. They also get to meet students with similar interests from all over the state. We really do welcome students from all backgrounds, opinions, and regions of the state. We find that this is not a program for every single kid. You know, some kids love soccer. My son loves soccer, and now he loves spike ball. If you don't know about spike ball, it's a little, we can go into that later, but it's a game that's taken the college campuses by storm, and that's, you know, his passion. For some kids, youth in government or change making or current events is their passion. And so when they come to these conferences and find other kids like them, they sort of feel like they've found a home. And I hear that again and again from the young people that come back year and year and in and out. We have kids that start as young as 7th grade and go all the way through their senior year. Many come back to volunteer as college students, and still many more run delegations as adults. So it really is a life-changing experience for them. And they get to practice leadership and civic skills in an authentic setting. I think that's important. The difference between learning about civics in a textbook or being in a class and sitting in the seat and pounding on the desk is instrumental in sort of how that understanding comes to be. And so I think the teachers hold up the world when it comes to what they do, but we're excited to be able to offer this supplementary experience where they can feel it as much as learn it. So if you look closely at this is the group of kids in the Madison State Capitol. We are, as I mentioned, very, very excited to dive into that this year. Our Youth in Government in Minnesota is held in early January. Your Youth in Government in Wisconsin is held in March. So that gives us a little break in between. Your program is about 150 kids, so we see there's lots of potential to grow and continue to grow both through WISE, through other partnerships with youth-serving organizations, and through the schools. The history of the youth in government in Wisconsin is that it really has moved around from Y to Y over the past decade. It was like many Ys, our Y is struggling as well as memberships decline. In the days that we were used to being able to run a lot of programs using our memberships fees and using those programs, we have seen that decline and have had to find other models and other sources of revenue. So Wisconsin has had a difficult time finding sort of a permanent home. And then as luck would have it, the Minnesota Alliance with WISE merged with the Wisconsin Alliance with WISE and the UP Alliance of WISE to form, just in the last month, the Upper Midwest Alliance, which gave us a chance to talk to one another and see where we could support one another in some of the programs that we were currently running. And out of that conversation became this opportunity to partner and to run Youth in Government for Wisconsin. So we are very, very excited. We are also looking to include Wisconsin students into our Model United Nations program, which happens in Minnesota in the spring, and make that more of a regional program, which is very brand right for what Model United Nations is about, trying to incorporate a larger worldview on that. And so we're looking for partners in Wisconsin to help join us. And that is really where you come in. We're excited to have this opportunity. So how can you help? We would love if you would be willing to talk about Center for Youth Voice and the civic programs that we are running. When you're in your community, talk about them amongst yourselves, talk about them as you go out and about. Please share any school or youth-serving organizational contacts with us so that we can reach out and help to build local delegations and build this opportunity in Wisconsin. If you feel so inclined, help us raise money for scholarships. Our motto at the Y is that no one will ever be turned away for need. So we do fundraise day in and day out, year in and year out, to have enough money to offer scholarships to any child that wants to participate in our program. There is a cost to our program. We are a fee-based program, and part of that is because we stay at a local hotel and at the Capitol during those immersive days in the experience, and so that does create a cost. But we do make sure that, again, that no child is ever turned away for cost. So money for scholarships is a primary focus for us all the time. And then I would also invite you to come and see it in action. Come to Madison in March. I will share the information out through the league. If you'd like to come take a tour, walk in, see the kids, have the same experience that I had when I walked in for the first time in 2016 after the election to sort of see the future and to see and be assured that the kids have got this, and that our job is now to support and continue to equip them and then let them run, because they will amaze us time and time again. So why do we all do this work? We do it because we know that when young people are engaged early in life, they are far more likely to remain engaged in the future. We know a lot of studies and a lot of research has shown that the number of people who join organizations continues to decrease. So how do we create the next version, the next community of the next leagues? How do we grow our leagues and keep them engaging for young people who will then become the civic leaders of the future? I know that Rotaries and Lions and leagues, all the groups that have so much impact on civic life in communities, are struggling with that same question, how to engage the younger generations. And so one of the things we know from research is that when you get kids engaged early, and they see that they can make a change and that they see that they can have an impact, they're far more likely to continue doing that. We know one rote statistic is that kids who vote in their first election when they're 18 are 8 times more likely to continue voting than if they wait until they are older. So we think that we're doing some good work by reaching kids young. And overall, because we believe that youth voice and youth participation in these activities matter, and that our shared civic and political life is stronger when we all come together and when youth see themselves as being invested stakeholders, as the ones who are going to be reaping the benefits of their involvement today. So that is the outcomes that we are hoping for at all times, and that we are starting to see. We believe that we are starting to see. So that makes it worthwhile. Thank you. I feel like I said, this has been a long time just talking to myself. It's about almost a half an hour. I am happy to field questions. I have the screen over to the left of me and can answer questions if they come through to the chat. And if you don't have any questions or want to think for a minute, we can just sort of pause and take your time. My friend Riley on the other end of the Ripon channel here is going to help me out if there's any connectivity issues, but here's me again. Nice to see you all again. I'm not seeing anything yet. Oh, we have one question. Do we reach out to schools in the state? We are going to be reaching out to schools in the state, yes. In Wisconsin, I'm assuming you're meaning Wisconsin. We do reach out, and we are going to continue to reach out. Right now, we've actually just started our reaching out to Minnesota schools as they got back into session, because our conference is a little bit earlier. We're starting with Minnesota schools, but we will be doing the same process. We do have a dedicated person whose job is outreach into the schools. So again, any contacts you have or connections, we do tend to start and work through social studies programs. We work through principals, and then we work even better through people who introduce us to people, because that's often a softer door opening. So that will definitely be on our to-do list in about a month, probably. I'm getting 3 little dots, which must mean I'm getting another question, maybe. Sound ask. What does it take to extend these programs down to the middle school? Well, so some of our programs are for middle school. The kids voting program actually goes to an elementary school, middle school, and high school. The Respectful Conversations is a middle school program as well. Youth in Government starts in 8th grade. Our Model United Nations starts in 7th grade. So in Minnesota, most of our middle schools are 6 through 8, and then our high schools are 9 through 12. So we do try to get kids in there as early as 7th and 8th grade. One time, for one reason, because we find that when they get in earlier, they then take on leadership positions as they stay in the program longer and longer. And then pretty soon it's a student-led program in their school, and they are the best ambassadors for continuing that pipeline of students. There really are no barriers to our ability to deliver civic programs. Again, if there's an interested person, and whether that's a student, a parent, or a teacher, or a principal, or a school board member, if there is interest, we go where the energy is. So we will work with that school to find a program that meets what they're looking to do. It says, are you able to provide a round number of the cost per student to attend Model UN? I believe it is about $325 for the whole program. So that includes the preparation in the months leading up to that. Model UN is actually 2 nights at the hotel. No, let's see, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, Model UN is 2 nights at the hotel. Youth and Government is 3 nights at the hotel. So that $300 is all of the preparation as well as the nights at the hotel uh, for the conference. Youth and Government, I'm just going to assume that's the next question. Youth and Government is a little bit more expensive because it does have one additional night at the hotel. I believe that cost is closer to $375. I think there's about a $50 difference between the two conferences. Another question, what would the groundwork look like for beginning to create something like this in our area volunteers hours timeline? It depends on which program you're asking about, and maybe if you are interested, I'd be happy to talk offline. Um, our Center for Youth Voice has been several years in the making. Model UN and Youth and Government were programs that were running, and then I was running a small nonprofit that had 4 other programs: Students Voting, Respectful Conversations, Youth Day at the Capitol, and such. And we came together in 2018. So we've had the benefit of having some programs that were new, some programs that were old, and a pipeline of alums from some of those programs to be very, very helpful. But it would not take if there was a program that you were most interested in or thought that would be most appealing to your community, I'm pretty certain that we could sit down and figure out sort of the first best steps to take. We would certainly also be excited to work with you on a mock election. I know that's certainly brand right or in the wheelhouse of the League of Women Voters. So maybe as we're getting close to the gubernatorial election in 2022, there's a way we could work together to help staff some mock elections in the schools or for the leagues to be able to work as volunteers to help provide some of those authentic kind of voting experiences for young kids. I will tell you, it is well worth an afternoon to show up and watch these kids vote, get their sticker, walk away with their chests all puffed out and pretty proud. And what we see actually is that some voting programs in the 80s, kids voting actually, which we did work with, was all about having parents bring their kids to the polls, which is a great program. What we find now is that fewer and fewer parents are going to the polls, and as some who can't vote or some who choose not to vote. And so this way, we give every child the chance to vote. And sometimes they then go home and say, hey, I voted today. Are you going to go vote? So it's a nice way to kind of turn that on its head and have the kids encouraging the parents to get out and do their civic duty because the kids have had the opportunity to do so. So we see that both in low voting turnout representative communities as well as immigrant communities where voting still seems very mysterious or difficult. So having the kids to encourage and help the parents has gone a long way. Kudos to Riley on the other end here, by the way, who's seeing your questions and then typing him quickly with his thumbs on the phone so that I get them on my phone. I'm not sure if we missed something, if I missed something on the chat function of the YouTube channel, but appreciation to Riley for helping me out on this. Can you elaborate on the language of civic deserts and how that might relate to food deserts? It's very similar actually. The term civic deserts and the term food deserts does, they speak to the same idea, which is that as resources go into the cities, as more and more people are moving away from the rural communities and into cities, we have fewer and fewer resources available, whether those resources include a grocery store, a cub, or a low priced place where you can buy your groceries, or whether that is a place where you can gather and have the kinds of activities beyond just what's offered in a school day, to explore again how to learn to be the kind of community member we want them to be. So it really is a matter of diminishing resources in a community, and diminishing opportunities to really explore all the different aspects of what we would like our life to include. And as those resources become slimmer, it just becomes more and more difficult to expand anyone's ability to connect with things outside of what is kind of in their own little area. Those of you who have an iPhone realize that as you're waiting for a message, you get those three little dots on the bottom. So I keep looking to see, and there, sure enough, I got three little dots coming up. So I know there's either something coming up or Riley's telling me to sign off. That's exactly what it is. He said it's time to sort of sign off. So thank you very much again for your time tonight. Thank you, Judy and the League. I did have, let me see, I have a little announcement I was supposed to make. The League of Women Voters of the Ripon area sponsored tonight's event. The League would like to encourage registered voters to exercise their right to vote. If you have not registered to do so, or if you would need to request an absentee ballot, you may do so at https://myvote.wi.gov. It will also be available on the League of Women Voters of the Ripon area Facebook page. In theory, the link was shown during tonight's viewing and will also be on the taped replay. The site is tied to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and as such, you may use your driver's license or state-issued ID to register as a voter or as the means of photo identification for an absentee ballot. As the League of Women Voters begins our 60th year, we find ourselves continuing our work to educate voters. And I would say that is my passion and goal too, and I'm grateful that we had this opportunity to meet one another and look forward to continued chances to partner in the future. So thank you very much.